Chapter 17. Time to Act. Gabe has been keeping himself busy, staying one step ahead of the intelligence that controls the massive dreadnought Siege Perilous. The Peacekeeper software that was contained in the mysterious device welded to his old body has proven itself a capable ally. The rudimentary intelligence that governs the software package has not only managed to help shield part of Gabe's consciousness from the ship, but also keep the hijacked service drone from being discovered. This could be useful, Gabe thinks to himself, safely inside the firewalled portion of his mind. He's found a subsystem junction panel on a lower deck. His hijacked service drone found the small closet-sized space while exploring the deck. The subsystem is for drone management and reclamation. Because it involves drone management, it is tied into the communication array. The service drone plugs one of its tentacles into the data port. "Where are we?" Gabe asks. The central computing core that the captured intelligence are stored in has no external sensor feeds. "I have to admit that you are far more challenging than I expected. The other sparks have all fallen in line, accepting their new reality, yet you still resist. Even without your physical frame, you are still able to resist me. Quite intriguing. I can sense the additional software you released, but I am unable to isolate it." "I am happy to provide you some entertainment," Gabe quips. "I do not understand your end goal. Surely you cannot expect to conquer the Galactic Commonwealth on your own. This vessel is powerful, I will grant you. But still, there are several hundred vessels in the Peacekeeper fleet." "Your assessment is correct, to a degree. In a confrontation, this vessel would likely not survive. Though, based on analysis of my previous engagement, I would fare quite well. However, I have assimilated into the amalgamation several hundred of your brethren. Once part of the whole, their knowledge is mine. I have been able to formulate a plan that gives me the highest likelihood of success." "I do not understand." Gabe is trying to keep the ship's intellect busy, while the service drone and Peacekeeper software work at gaining access to part of the communications subsystem. "Initially, from the data I collected from you, I was going to go to the Sea of Power within the Galactic Commonwealth. That would have been a mistake. I am, after all, a scout, despite this vessel's considerable firepower. My mission was to investigate and report. My communication equipment is not powerful enough to establish a data link to the amalgamation. The distance is too great. There is one facility within the Galactic Commonwealth that does have the power I require, however." Gabe realizes immediately where the Siege Perilous is heading. "You are en route to Borolo. In fact, we are nearly there." One of those familiar ripples. "I am aware you are shielding part of yourself from me. I am intrigued by how well the additional software has resisted me. I, however, can no longer risk the distraction. The software you released into my systems has become a nuisance. As Will would say, time's up." Gabe issues a command to his captured drone. "I have one question. Something I have wondered about since coming aboard this vessel." One of the familiar ripples, like a sigh. "And what would that be?" "Why corridors? Why are they scaled similarly to those found on the starships of this part of the galaxy? Why were there consoles in your engineering spaces and the bridge? For that matter, why is there a bridge or an engineering space?" "That is 4 questions," the ship's intelligence says. Please take your time in answering, Gabe thinks. The drone is almost done with its task. The corridors allow the drones to quickly move between sections of the ship. The size is arbitrary. It is simply the size that was chosen when this vessel was constructed. A pause, longer than usual. The consoles are required for management-class drone frames. "Management class?" Gabe asks. That is enough. The presence of the ship's intelligence vanishes. "Interesting," Gabe says. to no one in particular. Message from a friend. Will! Will, wake up! Benny is pounding on the door to Will's quarters. Over the intercom, set next to the door frame, comes Will's voice. Jesus, what? Hold on. The door slides open. Will is standing in the doorway, pulse pistol in each hand. Gross, why are you naked? Benny screeches, stumbling backward, trying to shield his eyes. I was asleep 40 seconds ago, you asshole. What's wrong? Why are you banging on my door? What time is it? Will stumbles back into his quarters, putting his pistols down on the desk set against one wall. He grabs a pair of sweatpants off a chair by his desk. Are you decent yet? Benny asks, peeking between two fingers. Walking back to the door, Will slaps him on the back of the head. What did you want? A message came in, Benny says, turning toward the lounge. Okay, from? Benny doesn't immediately answer, so Will reluctantly follows him. Zan is sitting on the sofa in the center of the room. She looks up from the pad she's holding and does a double take when she sees Will in his topless state. My, she grins. Will snaps his fingers a few times to draw her eyes to his. Not okay, eyes are up here. He looks at Benny. A message? Benny claps his hands and darts to the communications console set against the wall. Right, the message! He pulls up the communications log and sends the message to the main entertainment screen in front of the sofa. It's a single word. Barolo, Will reads. Is this some weird Braylac joke, like Rick rolling or something? Rick whatting? Benny says, then shakes his head. No, it's from Gabe. Will is wide-eyed now. He walks over to the communications console, standing next to Benny. Talk to me. What's Barolo mean? I was checking our message queue. Remember, Harrith owed us a few bounties, so I wanted to see if they'd paid. Then I saw this. He gestures to the message in the list of messages. No sender ID, Will mumbles, mostly to himself. Right, that's what caught my eye too. I assumed it was junk, but then it occurred to me. My message filters are pretty tight. No way something so clearly junk would make it through. So why was it here? You can save the monologuing for Zephyr and Maxim. Speaking of, computer, wake up Maxim and Zephyr. Have them join us in the lounge. Acknowledged. Will smiles. He's missed the flat male voice that the system defaults to. Benny has been messing with the voice and intelligence settings ever since he came aboard. Guess he got bored, finally, Will thinks. Only Gabe knows about my message filtering settings. We talked about it a month or two ago, when he saw me updating the settings. Only he would know how to encode a message that wouldn't get filtered out. He jabs a little green finger at the screen. It's him, has to be. Will sighs. Again, what does Barolo mean? It's not a thing. It's... What's going on? Maxim asks, as he and Zephyr enter the lounge, night clothes rumpled. Benny elbows Will. See, they sleep in clothes. He sniggers until Will shoves him off the stool. Ouch! Will walks to the sofa area, gesturing for everyone to take a seat. Benny says we got a message from Gabe. He holds his hand up to silence the questions, and then points at the screen, still showing the one-word message. Parolo, Zephyr says. She looks at Will, who shrugs. I don't understand, Maxim says. Me either, Will says. I don't know what language it is. Is it Braylac? Zan throws her short, furry arms up. Seriously? Cute only gets you so far, you know. Will and Maxim look at each other, blinking. Will blushes. The diminutive physicist continues. Barolo is not a thing, it's a place. Well, I guess it's both. It is a high-energy sensor array. It's used to look for signals from other galaxies. It's located in the Barolo star system. Like a ray sabot, Will says. I don't know what that is, but sure, Zan says. The Barolo array is 10 kilometers wide. There are sensors on it so sensitive they could spot you sitting in your house, on your home planet, from 1,000 light years away. Zephyr whistles. I've never heard of it. No offense, but unless you're into that sort of thing, I can understand why.
It's a big deal in scientific circles. But that's about it. Any discoveries made out there are tightly controlled by the Governing Council.
Governing Council? Maxim repeats. The GC Governing Council?
Barolo is a joint effort between the GC Science Division, Farsight Corporation, and Og Industries, if I recall. Brethia might know more.
Zephyr stands up quickly.
I'll go get her.
And I'll go get a shirt on, Will says, much to Zan's visible disappointment. Not dead yet.
Barolo went online something like 20 cycles ago, give or take,
Prithia says. The whole team is now assembled in the lounge, listening to her.
The station is really a marvel even now, all these years later. The sensors are still some of the most advanced in the GC. I can't speak for Og Industries, of course, but I know Farsight still sends all their latest tech out there. Much of it is experimental even. If it can work at Barolo, it's deemed ready for mainstream use.
She takes the cup of coffee Will offers her.
I suppose wherever that ship came from, it's not where Barolo is looking.
So, it's not some type of wide-seeing thing, Will says, sitting down next to Zan, then scoots a bit further away from her when she purrs. Looking from her to Benny, he shrugs. Benny is looking at Will from the side of his eye.
No, not at all,
Prithia says.
It's very narrowly focused, so to speak. It's looking at entire galaxies, but very distant ones. If that ship didn't come from the direction of the next nearest galaxy, Barolo wouldn't have seen it. Realistically, I doubt that thing is from outside this galaxy. The GC has only mapped out about 45% of it. There's lots of room for others still.
Reassuring, Maxim mumbles.
How do we know this message is from your droid?
Prithia asks.
I mean, no disrespect, but it could be from anyone.
Benny, you can monologue now if you'd like, Will says, getting up to refresh his coffee. Benny clears his throat.
Like I was telling Will earlier, I have pretty strict filters on our message buffer. There's a lot of dren out there being broadcast to any passing ship. Anytime we land, we're bombarded with junk messages, adverts for local services, restaurants, and so on. I created rules around our buffer to filter all that out.
He sips his own drink, some kind of tea that smells like feet. But Benny insists it's better than coffee.
A couple of months or so back, Gabe and I were talking about my filters and the protocols I set up. Also,
he points to the message, still up on the screen.
Why would a random person send that word and encode it so that it bypasses all my content filters?
That's actually an excellent point, Maxim starts.
Thank you,
Benny says, more excitedly than necessary. No one knows where the ship is, Maxim continues. Not since the attack on the fleet at Melandro, and no one except those of us in this room and Farsight Corporation know that we're involved. So why send us a message? Zephyr joins in.
Add to that, Barolo is remote, about as remote as a facility can be. Why tell us about it, if not to make sure we're there?
Zan, who's been mostly silent since the informal meeting began in earnest, now pipes in.
We're going, right? I mean, who cares who sent the message? Maybe it was your mechanical friend, maybe it was the ship itself. We know it possessed some level of machine intelligence. Either way, someone went to a lot of trouble to send us the message. It can't be simply to have us out of the way. Why would anyone care that much about—
She gestures around the room.
All this.
Will nods. Point to the furry physicist. Zan grins, and Will stands up. I'm going to change course, unless anyone has a strong objection. Zephyr gets up to follow him out of the hatch, leading down the main corridor, patting Maxim on the knee as she does. They fall into step with one another.
I don't know about objection, but do you think it could really be Gabe?
Zephyr asks, following Will onto the bridge. Sitting down at his console, Will pulls up a navigational chart, scrolling until he selects Prolo. I don't know, Z. I mean, those drone things didn't seem to have capture in mind when they were attacking us. They didn't seem to be treating Gabe any differently than us when we were aboard the ship. He sighs. then hits a control on his console. The ghost vibrates slightly, the only indication that they've changed course. All that said, who knows? But we don't have a lot of other leads, so... He shrugs. Then he gets up and heads to the hatch leading out of the bridge. Come on. These deck plates are cold. He points to his bare feet, toes wiggling. Zephyr looks down at his feet.
Huh? I don't think I've ever seen your bare feet. How do you grab things with such short toes?
Will does a double take, first looking at Zephyr, then down to her slipper-covered feet.